I love a good space shooter, but my biggest pet peeve when playing them is endlessly circling an enemy as you try to line up a shot, chasing that target indicator at the edge of the screen until somebody messes up. A few smart games have solved that issue one way or another, and Chorus is among the most direct. Push a button and poof, you're instantly teleported behind your target, ready to blast them to bits. Described that way, it does sound like a cakewalk, but Chorus definitely isn't. Especially when the pressure ramps up, even that trick and a few other god mode-like abilities might not save you. But one thing's for sure, you'll look pretty cool pulling them off, and the story that accompanies that action is respectable even though it threatens to drown you in lore. When you boil it down, your character Nara is basically what if Darth Vader had defected after the destruction of Alderaan. She's certainly well written and acted, and comes off as genuine rather than whiny as she's dragged into the Resistance. But it does become a bit tiresome to hear a repentant war criminal wallow in guilt for the entirety of her roughly 30-hour fight.
No, I mustn't lead anyone.
Getting to see Nara as a highly detailed and well-animated character model during cutscenes certainly helped me get attached to her, though it's hard not to notice that developer Deep Silver Fish Labs pretty clearly only had budget for exactly one model of this quality. Where that's an actual problem is that much of the story is told through other people's residual memories that Nara can sense, and it's not always clear what's going on. The same constraint of limited models is evident when all the pirates you're fighting against are flying the same handful of ship types as the cult you're battling. So even though Chorus is a good looking game, there were clearly a few corners cut to get there. On the other hand, the map is open, with new star systems unlocking as you progress through the story, and each new area I unlocked impressed me with how much it differed from the last. Coupled with the respectable explosion and weapon effects and some nice lighting, it paints a pretty picture. Some of the most impressive moments come from when you're battling capital ships that are bristling with turrets, then fly inside the structures to torpedo their cores. A short time into the campaign, Nara is paired with a sentient space fighter known as Forsaken, who is very much like the non-sentient fighter she started with, except that he has an extra slot for equipment mods and a personality I describe as Venom meets R2-D2 doing a pretty good impression of James Spader's Ultron voice.
Welcome back, Nara.
I do wish there were more of a gameplay impact to supposedly having an intelligent sidekick flying with you at all times. Outside of cutscenes, he never really does anything, but I do enjoy his aggressive, openly resentful attitude and the intriguing backstory of his origins. The plot itself is easy enough to follow, since it's largely about righteous revenge, vindication, and letting go of baggage, and there are some interesting revelations along the way. It's a bit of a drag that the lore of Chorus's universe feels so overstuffed with sci-fi religious philosophies and interdimensional threats. It's the kind of thing that might have worked better if I had been introduced to it gradually rather than being more or less thrown into the deep end and seeing it through the eyes of a character who doesn't need to learn it along with me. It does redeem itself with the ending reveal, which adds something extra to the relationship between Nara and Forsaken. What makes Chorus's space battles play out differently from and faster paced than the typical space shooter are those superpowered moves called rights. They seem like they should trivialize battles, but when you're under attack from a swarm of enemies or a boss, rights are essential for survival. Chorus puts them to good use, not only in combat but also in puzzle sequences where you need to drift to quickly hit a series of targets or blast or teleport through obstacles. I can totally see someone becoming an artist with this system and chaining together moves, and though as of this writing I am not one of those people, I have had some pretty spectacular and satisfying moments where it sure looked like I knew what I was doing. One area where Chorus doesn't really knock it out of the park is in its weapons and mods. There aren't a lot of options that will encourage you to change your playstyle aside from leaning into your favorite among the Gatling gun, laser, and missile launcher weapon classes, or boosting your ability to cast rights faster. It certainly makes an impact, but I'm always hoping for more dramatic changes from my loot. I'm sure you could power through the story a lot quicker than the roughly 30 hours it took me if you ignore the frequent side quests. But I wouldn't recommend it because there are some good ones out there that turn into long quest chains with fleshed out stories and characters that would lead to powerful new weapons or upgrades. The prospect of running into more of those had me sidetracking to chase a lot more random events than I normally would in a game like this. Chorus does an excellent job of cutting out the dull parts of space dogfighting, getting right to the flashy fun of blasting through enemy fighters and capital ships with superpowered abilities. Its large and pretty map is filled with enough fleshed out side quests, and they're varied enough that it's easy to cruise around for a few dozen hours if you like. The story behind it all isn't half bad once you've waded through all the sci-fi mysticism, and Nara and Forsaken are interesting characters to spend all that time with, which is a relief because they're the only ones we ever get to see. For more, check out the first 15 minutes of the campaign, and our review of the Star Wars Squadron single-player campaign. And for everything else, stick with IGN.